Hi, and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Angela.
And I'm Wesley.
Today is the 22nd of July. We're on page 63 of the magazine, and we're talking about the surprising brief history of online shopping. And it is brief, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, 我们今天这篇文章的标题是1990网购崛起。
Also, it's not as brief as you might think, which we're going to find out in the story.
Yeah, 因为我们英文标题是简单的历史，简短的历史。什么的简短历史呢？ Online shopping 网上购物的简短历史，这是英文标题的意思。
So, online shopping is big business. Boy, is it. Trillions of dollars of goods were bought over the internet in 2020. Although some people are still reluctant to shop online, it has been predicted by some experts that 95% of all shopping will be done through the internet by 2040. With the rapid growth in online sales recently, it's easy to assume that online shopping only began in the last decade or so. It will likely come as a surprise, then, that the world's first online purchase was made more than 35 years ago. A British woman named Jane Snowball has the honor of being the first person to shop online. At the time, in May 1984, she was a 72-year-old grandmother living in Gateshead, England. A computer technician named Michael Aldrich modified Snowball's television set and remote control to allow the elderly woman to place an order at the local Tesco supermarket. Using the remote control, Snowball bought eggs, cornflakes, and margarine from the store. The order was transmitted through telephone lines and involved computers at Tesco's Gateshead branch and a library. After receiving the order, Tesco delivered the items to her home, and she paid for them in cash. Snowball's purchase is now viewed as a historic moment, but back then, Aldrich didn't see it as that significant. It was done long before the World Wide Web and websites were invented. Aldrich said he considered what he did a fun experiment. He certainly did not foresee that internet shopping would eventually take off and become so popular. The main purpose of hooking up Snowball's TV to Tesco was to try to help elderly people have a more convenient life, not to start a huge worldwide industry. So it's funny how you can see throughout history people having ideas, but sometimes you need to have a system that supports the idea for the idea actually to come to fruition. So this dude had to cobble together computer systems and libraries and telephone lines to do what we can do now with just the internet, because the internet didn't exist in its form now then.
所以很有趣，就是在历史上面，当一个人他有一些 ideas 的时候呢，其实有需要其他东西来配合，他才可能真正做出什么有重大意义的东西。好像这一个工程师他有一些 ideas， 但是他其实也需要这个当时也要有电脑了啊，虽然还没有网络啊。那同时他也需要 library 啊，还需要这个 Tesco， 还有 Tesco 里面的人愿意跟他这样合作啊，所以有很多的因素加在一起，才能让他成为第一个这个促成网络购物的人。
We did have the internet at that time, but it was mostly between government installations and libraries actually and internet.
Yeah.
So they were probably actually using the internet in some form, but we didn't have personal computers in every home at the time.
Yeah, 当时已经有网络了，但是不像现在的网络这么的普遍啊。那当时网络可能主要是政府机构啊，或者是公司啊、行号企业，或者是那个博物馆在图书馆在使用，不像现在这么的普及啊，所以当然是不一样的。
Yeah. So, no question about our very first sentence. Online shopping is big business, and especially now in the year of pandemic, or the post-year of pandemic, or the second year of pandemic.
Yeah. 好，所以呢，第一句很简单啊，但是我想大家看了都没有意见，就是这个网购呢是大生意 ，big business.
Trillions of dollars of goods. Trillion is not even a number I can imagine. Do you know, if you're counting seconds, billions of seconds is 32 years. A million second is 11 days. So trillions is, I don't know, hundreds of years of seconds. It's just unimaginable.
Yeah. 所以 trillions 是数兆的意思啊，这个很大，所以价值数兆美元的商品呢，were bought 被购买啊 over the internet 就是透过网络来购买，在2020年有数兆美元的商品透过网络被购买了。
So even though there are still some people who are reluctant or unwilling to shop online, if Bruce was here, he would be agreeing and nodding heavily. It has been predicted by some experts that 95% of all shopping will be done through the internet by 2040, that in 10-ish years and 20 years, mostly all shopping is going to be done on the internet. I hope not.
我也是 I hope not 因为这个到实体商店去买东西还是有它的快乐的地方。
Absolutely. I mean, the joys of window shopping, honestly.
Yeah, 真的是逛街的快乐。那我想以后科技大概会慢慢发展到，因为会有一些不一样。你在家里面看一部电影，跟到电影院去看电影，那感觉不一样。有人讲这个是因为有其他人在你身边呢，其实会改变你周围的磁场听起来很玄不过 anyway
But also the problem with internet shopping is it creates so much waste. Although does it create more waste than in-person shopping? Not sure.
Yeah, 当然还有一个问题就是很多人注意到现在网络购物其实因为包装材料等等的其实会造成很多的污染不过没关系，我们回来看看这一句话。他说呢，虽然有一些人 are still reluctant to do something to be reluctant to do something 就是他还这个蛮不愿意的他还有抗拒，他不想要做某件事情这个 reluctant它也有动词 reluct 虽然不常见R-E-L-U-C-T 那这个字根呢 R-E 这个加强语气的，那个 luct 其实是 struggle 的意思所以 reluctant 有那种 struggle 有那种挣扎的意思，所以 reluctant 就是他挣扎大家都说你好了去了，他不要挣扎，我不愿意所以仍然是 unwilling to do something， 所以有一些人还不太愿意去 shop online。虽然是这样子，但是呢 it has been predicted 有人这样子预测预言 predict pre 是 before dict 是 word， 所以先说，我把话先说出来，未来这个会发生，就是预言的意思。所以已经被预言了，谁预言呢？ by some experts 有一些这个专家已经预言了。他说呢 95% 的 of all shopping 以后购物购买东西这个活动这样的一个事情，有 95% 的这个购物呢 will be done 会被这个执行 through the internet 会透过网络来执行by 就是到了2040年之前呢，有 95% 的购物会在网络上面进行。
Now, with the rapid growth, the very fast growth in online sales recently in the past year or so,It's easy to assume, it's easy to be like, yeah, sure, that online shopping only began in the last decade or so. I want to disagree with this sentence because it really is only in the last decade or so that online shopping became a real thing. Like 10 years ago, if you wanted to buy something online, it was really like, should I put my credit card information in this random website? Like, it was so... it was such a sketchy thing to buy things online. It wasn't like the sort of normal and natural thing it is now. So even if it was, 35 years ago that this grandmother first did this online shopping, it only became like ordinary garden variety, everything, something you do normally in the last 10 years or so. It was not normal before that.
Yeah. 好，所以呢，这个我们先看这句话的意思它的意思是说 with the rapid growth就是有这样的一个快速的成长，在哪方面有快速的成长呢？ In online sales 在这个线上销售有这么快速的成长recently 近来所以最近在线上购物有这么快速的成长，在这样的状况之下 it's easy to assume that 我们很容易就会以为会认为assume 就是 suppose 所以我们会认为说呢 online shopping only began 我们会很容易以为网上购物大概只是怎么样过去10年左右才开始的in the last decade or so 那这个地方刚刚 Angel 老师提出来就是可能有人会不同意因为事实上真的是这样子，就是现在这种网络购物这么方便，真的差不多就是过去10年左右。好，那10几年前我也曾经网络购物过那时候就像 Angel 老师讲，那个时候就很怕说我信用卡资料这样放到网络上到底 安不安全啊，哈，都会觉得会每天在提心吊胆的。
Yeah, and then you had to wait a really long time for it to come. There's all these shipping issues, especially in Taiwan.
Yeah, 那还要这个等东西什么时候会来啊，那等等的会有一些问题，不像现在这么的方便了。
And it was really a kind of like only for specialty items. You wouldn't buy clothes online. You wouldn't buy normal things online.
Yeah, 而且那个时候只是买一些特别的东西，你不太会这个日用品啊、衣服啊都上网去买啊。像我10几年前上网就是主要就是买书而已。
Yeah, basically, yeah. Or like specialty like food materials.
Yeah.
Like,
或者一些很台湾买不到的食材，你只好上网去买这样子。Yeah.
Right, yeah. So the next sentence is, it will likely come as a surprise then that the world's first online purchase was made more than 35 years ago. And that is surprising because I didn't know that this had gone on.
Yeah. 好，所以 come as a surprise 就是让人感到意外。通常前面会有个 it 啊 ，it will come as a surprise that 啊，就是我跟你讲这件事情的话，你会吓一跳，你会感到意外的意思哈。所以这里加了一个 likely， 就是很有可能，也就是说，当我们告诉你说怎样怎样的时候，你可能会感到很意外哈。什么事情呢？你会感到很意外？他这里告诉你说，就是这个世界的第一笔 online purchase， 第一笔网购呢 was made， 是这个交易是怎么样？什么时候做的呢？是超过35年以前，所以这个那么久之前就已经有了第一笔的网购交易了。
So a British woman named Jane Snowball, which is a hilarious name, she has the honor of being the first person to shop online.
有一位英国的女士named Jane Snowball 那她的名字蛮可爱的就是有一位名为 Jane Snowball 的一个英国的女士呢 has the honor of 就是有幸怎么样那她是有幸成为 has the honor of being the first person to shop online， 她有幸成为第一位在网上购物的人所以这地方各位可以学起来 has the honor of being 怎么样，就是她有幸成为这样的一个人。
Now, at the time, in May 1984, she was a 72-year-old grandmother, and she was living in Gateshead, England. Gateshead being a medium-ish town, I think.
好，所以 at the time 就是当时是1984年的5月，她是一位72岁的这个祖母阿嬷living in 她住在哪里？住在这 Gateshead, England， 住在英国的 Gateshead 这个地方。
I mean, at the time, I was still in grade school. Anyways, a computer technician, a guy who did computers, who I guess repaired or worked on computers in some way, named Michael Aldrich. He modified, he changed or added things to Snowball's television set. And television sets at the time were not computer-based. They were normal things. They were not computerized. They did not have chips in them. But he did something to it and also did something to her remote control. And this was to allow her, this elderly woman, to place an order, to be able to order things at the local Tesco. And Tesco is like, it's just basically a grocery chain in the UK.
Yeah.
At the local Tesco supermarket. It's a lower-end grocery chain. It's the cheaper end of things.
好，所以这个 Tesco 其实台湾以前有一段时间有
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, 所以它是一个英国的一个像大型超市的连锁店那这个台湾曾经有一段时间有过所以我们看到这个句他说a computer technician 一个电脑技师他的名字叫做 Michael Aldrich。那他怎么样 modified 就是修改稍微的修改或者改造这个稍微修改了一下Snowballs 他的 television set 就是他的电视机，把他电视机稍微改了一下，还改了他的 remote control 还有这个遥控都把它改了一下。做什么呢？ To allow 让这个 elderly woman 这位年长的女性可以干嘛呢？ To allow her to place an order 让她下订单 place an order 好，那在哪里下订单呢？在这个当地的 Tesco 的这个 supermarket 在 Tesco 的超市让他可以这样下订单。好，那 supermarket 注意那个重音在前面不要念 supermarket 是 supermarket。
So using the remote control, Snowball bought eggs, cornflakes, and margarine, very typical, very common things to buy in Britain. She bought these from the store.
好，所以 用这个遥控呢，使用这个遥控啊，那这个 Snowball 他就买了蛋，好，买了 cornflakes 啊，这个玉米片，好，还有 margarine 就是这个 margarine 啊，就是人造奶油，好，从这个店里面买了这些东西。
Basic staples.
就是主要的一些食物主食啦。
Now, the order was transmitted through telephone lines. If you transmit something, it means you send it. And our internet now still largely relies on telephone lines and also mobile phone data lines. But literally, this was sent through the physical telephone line, and it involved computers at Tesco's Gateshead branch. So they had computers within Tesco's at the time. And also a library, because I imagine the library was the node of the internet by which they could send and receive information in order to get it to Tesco's Gateshead branch. So probably, I'm guessing, just guessing, that she called the library with her phone and used a library internet hookup to communicate with the Gateshead branch. I'm guessing.
Yeah. 好，所以呢，这个他透过 library 他有用到图书馆，那可能是因为那个图书馆那个时候呢应该是是一个电脑的一个 node N-O-D-E 刚刚 Angela 是用到这个词，大概就是一个节点就那个地方是电脑的线路交汇的一个地方，他大概用电话呢透过这个 library 去下定的，大概是这样子，我们猜测所以我们看这个句子，他说他的订单呢 was transmitted 被传送被发送transmit 就是传送或者发送to send from one person or place to another 那它怎么发送呢 ？Through 透过 telephone lines 透过电话线那其实我记得早期我们用这个网络的时候也是大概都是透过电话线那个时候还有那个有那个 modem 要去拨那个拨号什么的，那都是靠电话线。Yeah.
I bet she called the library's modem, and then she had to listen to ding ding ding.
Yeah, 那个 modem 在接的时候会有一些很好玩的声音
Oh God.
Yeah, 所以呢，它透过电话线，然后呢 ，involved 它的当时 involved 在这里可以把它翻译成用到，它有使用到什么东西？它有用到这个 computers at Tesco's Gateshead branch 它用到这个 Tesco 这个 Gateshead 的这个的分店的这个电脑还有用到这个 library.
So of course, after receiving the order, Tesco delivered the items to her home. And she paid for them in cash because there was not internet payments at that time in any remote way. Of course not.
Yeah, 所以当时你还没有办法这个用线上付款所以他当然是 paid in cash 就是以现金付款。所以这个句子说，当他收到 the order 就是指他所订的东西the order 他收到他所订的东西之后呢 Tesco 就 delivered 就是送deliver 就是 to bring or transfer to the person 或者是the proper place 就是送到你这边来，所以 deliver 这个字这个字的字根其实很有趣这个 D 是 away 那个 liver 其实是跟 liberty 一样的字根，就是 free 的意思所以就是 free away 就是把你送出去，让你这个自由了，可是其实自由是到另外一个地方去了所以 delivered 所以就是在这个字现在就是送的意思就送到哪里去，所以 Tesco 把这个 items 他所买的东西呢送到他的家，然后呢 she paid for them in cash 他就用现金付款。
That's a lot of trouble for Tesco. They have to monitor their computer, they have to send somebody out, and then they have to come back and ring up the sale once they have the cash in hand.
Yeah.
It's not quite convenient for Tesco.
Yeah. 所以 Tesco 的可能对他们讲蛮麻烦的他收到订单处理完，然后还要派人送去，然后收了款回来还要在这个入账什么的，还开发票等等的。
Yeah, but, you know, it was good for the old people who couldn't leave their houses.
Yeah, 对于没有办法离开家去买东西的这些老人家，这个是很好的服务。
So Snowball's purchase is now viewed as or seen as a historic moment. It was like, wow, this was the first time this new thing happened in the world. But back then, Aldrich didn't see it as that significant. He didn't think, wow, I've created something historically new. You almost never think that when you do. You're just like, oh, finally I created this thing that I think should exist.
Yeah. 所以历史常常这样子，你其实一开始第一次做到某件很重要的事情的人，他当时可能没有感觉那很重要所以这地方讲到说这个 Snowball 他的 purchase 他购买他那一次的购物呢，现在被视为 is now viewed as 现在被视为一个 historic moment 就是具有历史性的时刻 historic 是具有历史意义的历史性的 Yeah
He was just probably relieved it had gone off. Like, he was like, oh, it worked. Thank goodness. Okay, next,
Yeah, 当时他可能只觉得这成功了啊，真好啊。但是我们现在看，哇，这是具有历史意义的啊。那这个字常常考试的时候，常常会考说这个跟另外一个字的区别 ，historical 的差别。historical 是历史上真的有的，所以有扣住真正的历史。你这样去想，扣就是扣住了，所以它扣住真正的历史。它不是讲它有历史意义，不是说有历史性，它是真正历史上发生过的事情。所以我们常常讲 historical records 就是历史的记录，它真的扣到的。但在这里是 historic 是具有历史意义的意思哈。所以现在大家看这件事情都觉得哇，这具有历史性啊，具有历史意义。但是 back then 当时呢，这个 Aldrich didn't see it as that significant， 他并不觉得这是一个 significant， 它是一个具有重大意义的事件啊，所以这个当时并不知道后来会这么的这个具有重大意义。
It was done long before the World Wide Web, which was invented somewhere in the 2010s, and before websites were invented, because websites were part of the World Wide Web. Before that, the internet was a very black and white affair. You typed things in on a black screen and you executed programs, and it was all words and numbers. There were no pictures. The World Wide Web itself was an amazing invention, and that it picturified the internet.
Yeah， 好，所以这件事情 it was done long before 哈，这件事情做是在什么之前呢？而且是在这个很久之前，在什么很久之前呢？在这个 World Wide Web 好，还有 websites 好，这个网站啊，还有这个网络啊，这个被发明之前，所以当时还没有这些东西。
Aldrich said that he considered what he did a fun experiment. He hadn't thought of it as being very important. He was like, yeah, let's try it and see if it works. He certainly did not foresee or predict that internet shopping would eventually take off and become so popular. He can't possibly have imagined the world of 90% of people shopping for their stuff online. He was like, hey, what if we use this thing and we make it easy for old people to shop at Tesco? That's all he thought about.Yeah,
那他说呢，他 considered 他认为，好，那 what he said 是 considered 的受词，他认为这个受词就他认为他所说的东西是什么呢？那个是就不用再讲了，这个 considered 很特别，他后面可以加受词，然后直接加受词补语，就是认为这个受词是受词补语这个东西，那个是不用再说了。所以这里 considered what he said， 他认为他所说的what he did， 他认为他所做的呢是一个 a fun experiment， 是一个很有趣的实验啊。然后接下来他说 he certainly did not foresee that， 他很确定的一点是他并没有预见到， foresee 就是预见啊，就是预先看到， for 就是 before 那个 for 就是 pre 在事前 see 先看到，好，所以 foresee 就是 predict 啊，就是 to see or know beforehand， 他没有预见到说这个 internet shopping 这个网络的这个购物呢 would eventually 最后终于会 take off。Take off 在这里是 to become successful or popular 啊 especially suddenly 就突然之间就好像起飞了，突然之间就这样飙起来，被这么受欢迎了，好，所以他没有想到他这个网络购物最后会 eventually take off and become so popular.
The main purpose of hooking up Snowball's TV to Tesco was to try to help elderly people have a more convenient life, not to start a huge worldwide industry.Yeah,
the main purpose of 就是什么东西的主要目的。好，所以他做这件事情的主要目的，什么事情呢？ Hooking up Snowball's TV to Tesco. Hook up A to B 就是把 A 跟 B 连接起来。所以他把 Snowball's 的这个电视跟 Tesco 连接起来。好，他主要的目的是干嘛呢？ Was to try to help 只是想要帮忙 elderly people 这个年长者 have a more convenient life。只是希望他们能够有比较便利的生活 ，not 而不是要 start 开始 a huge worldwide industry， 而不是要开始一个很大的庞大的全世界性的一个这个工业或者行业。
So this is the first part of a 2-day article, so join us again next time for the rest of the story. Until then, bye-bye.